Welcome back, guys. I know you've been wondering, when is Mr. Lehman going to tell a good bow joke? Well, I've been thinking for a long time and I got one. All right, here we go. Why did the pepper farmer fire his bow? Because he didn't habanero. Get it? So like habanero is a type of pepper, and habanero is kind of like he didn't have an arrow. It sounds like habanero. It's a solid joke, I think. Pretty solid. Okay, yesterday we glued our handle material together and our tips. We're gonna take them out of the vise now. We're gonna run them through the joiner and the thickness planer, make everything nice and smooth, and then we will glue it onto the bow. We'll see if we have time after that to do something else. First, I took the handle out of the vise. I peeled all the tape off, and you can see the glue squeezed out. To get rid of that glue and to make it nice and smooth, I ran it through the joiner, which remember is like a big power plane. You can see how clean this edge is now. I then ran the other edge through the table saw to clean up both of the edges. And then I went over to the chop saw and cut off the ends to make it the exact size I wanted it. After this, I took the handle and I glued it onto the bow. I'm using Titebond 3, the same glue I used before. And then I just took a couple bar clamps and made sure I was clamping it right in the middle of the bow, clamped it tight onto the bow. After it dried, I planed off the extra glue and clamped it down to a flat table. Now this is interesting. To get the recurve in our bow, that is the bend that bends the opposite way of the bow, I'm creating a special jig. So I'm clamping the bow down to a flat surface here, and then I'm going to take a thin piece of plywood and trace the bend of the bow onto the plywood. You can see the bend here. Then I'm going over to the bandsaw here and I'm cutting out that curve. That curve is going to provide the template for the form that we're going to put the bow in. Here I am tracing the template onto a thick piece of pine that will work as our form. You can see what the form looks like once it's all traced out. I'm leaving space in the middle for the handle. Then I'm simply going over to the bandsaw and I'm cutting the form out on the bandsaw. All right, folks, so I've got the bow now clamped in our form. And I want to talk for a quick second about the shape of the bow because I haven't mentioned this yet. You'll notice that our bow obviously is flat and then the limbs flare up like this at the ends. What you're looking at is not actually the bend that the bow's going to have when the string is in it. Instead, this bend is actually the front of the bow. So what we're making here is called a recurve bow. The string is actually going to go from this point to this point behind the back of the bow. So the bow is going to have kind of a funny look to it when the string's on it. Let me show you what I mean. I'll draw a quick picture for you. So a traditional bow would probably look something like this, right? You would have a handle right here, and you would have a string coming down like that, and your arrow would go right here, like that. This is called a D-shaped bow, because it's shaped like a D, okay? What we're doing is called a recurve bow. So our bow instead is going to look, I'm going to try my best to draw this, it's going to be hard. Our bow is going to look something like that. And the string's going to go along like that. So the limbs, and the arrow of course would go here, like that. But the limbs have a bend in them, like this. What this does is gives it a little bit more snap and power as the arrow comes out of the bow. I don't understand a ton about this and the mechanics of it, but what we're doing is called the recurve bow. We're following those plans. So this is actually the top of the bow, or the front of the bow. So what we're going to do now is take this piece of bamboo and we are going to glue the bamboo to the front of our bow. We're going to have to rough it up like we did before, and then we'll use some Titebond 3 to glue it and clamp it down. Before I glue it though, I'm going to check it and I'm going to make sure that it's all going to lay out properly. Then we'll glue it. All right, here we go. What I just did when I clamped this together and I didn't put any glue in it is called a dry fit. Whenever you plan to clamp and glue something together, especially something big like this that's fairly complicated, you always want to clamp it together first, make sure everything works before you put glue in it. Because once you start gluing, you can't stop. So I just did my dry fit. Everything looks good here. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to glue the bamboo onto the ipe with some Type Bond 3. First I'm going to rough it up and then I'm going to glue it on. Also, you'll notice the edges of the bamboo is hanging over the ipe. That's okay. When I come back after this is all glued up, we're going to come back and we're going to shave the extra bamboo off the edges.
Just a lonesome old rounder. Darkness grows and then it's gone. And at the end of its lonely road, those deeds you've done, they say you'll never go home. Some folks are guided by the love they share. Darkness called, left me unaware. Now I'm just a lonesome old rounder.
As you can see, the bamboo is now glued down to the ipe on the bow. When we come back tomorrow, we will shave down the bamboo and we'll work on shaping out the handle of the bow. And then we'll also probably make a tillering stand. See you guys tomorrow.
All is still.